You sometimes hear Korea called the coffee kingdom. Is that just hype? Or is the scale really that massive?
Oh, it's not hype. It's kind of mind-blowing, actually. Picture this. Cafes outnumber convenience stores by like 1.6 times, and pharmacies, almost 4 times as many cafes. We're talking over 100,000 cafes across the country by 2023. It just shows this huge societal demand for these spaces. They really shape the look and feel of cities.
Okay, that paints a picture. And it's not just the number of places, right? People are actually drinking a lot of coffee.
A ton. On average, Koreans drink about 405 cups per person per year.
405.
Yeah, which is more than double the world average. It puts them second globally. So yeah, it's not just about having the cafes, it's a serious daily habit for many.
And this isn't some new fad, is it? Does it have deeper roots?
It really does. Modern cafes actually evolved from older traditions like dabang. Those were traditional tea rooms, and even earlier places called jumak, which were like inns.
Gabang, yeah.
Yeah, and the early dabang, back in the early 20th century, weren't just for tea. It was a key spot for political talks, artists gathering, networking, kind of like those famous 17th century Parisian cafes.
The ones the police apparently kept an eye on.
Exactly. That tells you how important they were seen as, socially and politically.
So did they play a role in, say, Korean history movements too?
Absolutely. During the Japanese colonial period, some dabang were actually used as quiet meeting places, even bases for anti-Japanese movements.
No way.
Yeah. And later on, they became hubs for student activism. These places were selling drinks, sure, but they were also fostering community and sometimes even dissent.
That historical weight is fascinating.
Yeah.
So fast forward to today. How does that translate for modern Koreans? Are cafes still serving those kinds of social functions? Maybe in different ways?
They definitely are. It connects to this idea of the third place, sociologist Ray Oldenburg's concept.
Right, the place that's not home, not work.
Exactly. It's that neutral ground, a sort of refuge from family pressures or work stress. Academics pointed this out too, how cafes offer a release.
And you see that playing out with specific groups.
Totally. You have the literally coffee office tribe people using cafes as their workspace.
I like that.
These groups are a huge reason why the cafe scene keeps growing, and it's partly why some analysts think Korean-style cafes could become a global export.
Interesting. So beyond just being functional, they must add something to the cities themselves,
Yeah.
aesthetically.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer variety in design and architecture is amazing. Many cafes become local landmarks almost. And for international visitors, the often beautiful interiors, the cleanliness,
Yeah.
it can really showcase a modern, sophisticated side of Korea.
And jobs, too, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. They provide a lot of accessible part-time work, especially for young people.
So it sounds like visiting a cafe in Korea.
Yeah.
It's often about more than just the coffee or the cake. It's about the space itself.
That hits the nail on the head. People are often consuming the atmosphere, the environment. A study back in 2019 actually identified 4 main ways people use these spaces, reflecting different inner desires, you could say.
Okay, break those down for us.
All right. First, there's space for immersion. That's when you're really focused, either on the people you're with or on your own work, like studying or writing.
Makes sense. Concentration zone.
Second, space for healing. People go to cafes to de-stress, escape the daily grind, maybe explore a new neighborhood, find a little sanctuary.
A little escape pod. Okay.
Third, and this one's interesting, space for ostentation. Basically, showing off, but in subtle ways.
Oh, how so?
Like knowing about the trendiest new cafe gives you a bit of social cred, right? Especially if you post it on Instagram. Or even just being seen working or studying there can make you feel productive or look productive to others. It's a psychological boost.
Right, the look at me being studious in this cool place vibe.
Kind of, yeah. And fourth is the space of contradiction. This is about wanting to be alone, but in public.
Ah, solitude among the crowd.
Exactly. Creating your own little bubble, people watching, maybe doing some self-reflection. So the fact that there are so many cafes, it really points to this deep need in society for places that can hold all these different needs and values simultaneously.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. For someone visiting Korea, or maybe living there as a foreigner, what are some of the first, maybe slightly quirky practical things they'll notice about cafes? You walk in, and it's not just about coffee.
Right. You immediately see people doing all sorts of things, studying intensely, having work meetings, on dates, just hanging out with friends. It's clearly a multi-purpose zone.
And one thing that might surprise people is how long you can stay.
Oh, definitely. It's generally totally fine to camp out for, say, 3 or 4 hours if you're studying or working. There usually isn't that pressure to leave that you might feel elsewhere.
Like no one's giving you the stink eye after an hour.
Not usually, no. It's sort of understood, though, common courtesy applies. If it's super busy, maybe order another drink, especially in smaller independent places. But the acceptance of long stays is pretty standard.
And for digital nomads or anyone needing to work, they're pretty well set up, right?
Oh, yeah. Free Wi-Fi is almost universal, and finding power outlets is usually not a problem, especially in the big chains like Starbucks, IDEA, Tucson Place. It's incredibly convenient for getting work done.
Okay, so you're settled in, you've got your Wi-Fi. What about the actual process? Ordering, getting your stuff.
Ah, yes. The self-service shuffle, as you might call it. This catches a lot of foreigners out.
How does it work?
Typically, you order and pay at the counter. They'll often give you one of those vibrating pager things.
Buzzer, yeah.
Right? When it buzzes, you go pick up your order from the counter. But the crucial part, the bit people miss, is that when you're done, you're expected to clear your own table.
Ah, yes. Return the tray, cups, everything.
Exactly. There's
Right.
usually a designated return station or counter. You bus your own table. It's just standard etiquette.
I totally remember my first time being that person who just left everything on the table, looking around, wondering why everyone else was tidying up. It felt like I'd missed a memo for a silent cleanup flash mob.
Yeah, it's a common realization. It's partly about efficiency, sure, but it also taps into a wider cultural value around shared responsibility for public spaces, keeping things neat.
Okay, another thing that feels unique.
Yeah.
Saving seats.
Right. It's super common to see someone walk in, put their bag or maybe a notebook down on a table to claim it before they even go to the counter to order.
And people just respect that. No one nicks the table or the bag.
Generally, yes, it's an accepted kind of informal system. Low theft rates definitely help make this possible, but it also speaks to that sense of collective trust and respecting unspoken rules in public.
It's like calling dibs, but much more polite and with better lighting.
Pretty much, though, maybe use a textbook or a jacket, not your brand new laptop or phone, just to be safe. Common sense still applies.
Good tip. Okay, what about noise levels? Phone calls.
Yeah, that's important. Having loud phone conversations or watching videos without headphones is generally seen as quite rude, especially because so many people are working or studying. The expectation is quiet consideration.
So step outside for calls.
Best practice, definitely. Or find a more secluded corner, maybe near the restrooms. Just be mindful of others trying to concentrate.
Okay, so we've got the etiquette down. It feels like Starbucks had a pretty big role in shaping the modern scene when it arrived.
Oh, massively. Starbucks landed in Korea in 1999, and it really popularized a lot of the things we now take for granted. The idea of takeout coffee, the self-service system, even just going to a cafe alone to read or work.
Didn't Starbucks Korea actually pioneer something that went global?
They did, the Siren Order system. They launched it back in 2014.
Siren Order, that's the mobile ordering.
Yeah, order and pay on your phone before you even get to the store. It was such a hit in Korea that Starbucks eventually rolled it out internationally, US, Canada, UK, Hong Kong.
That's amazing. A local Korean solution fundamentally changing how millions get their coffee worldwide. That's pretty impactful.
For anyone planning a trip to Korea, or maybe you're there now, we can offer a few final practical tips to make navigating the cafe scene even easier.
All right, let's hear them. Tip number 1.
Ordering basics. Remember, latte in Korea often just means coffee with milk. Might not be espresso-based like you expect. Americano is your standard diluted espresso.
Good distinction. And sizes. Don't expect this Starbucks lingo everywhere.
Right, no guaranteed tall, grande, venti. Many local places will use small, medium, large, or sometimes just offer one standard size. Just look closely at the menu.
Well, if your Korean isn't great.
Don't sweat it.
Right.
Pointing at menu pictures is totally fine and very common. Using a translation app on your phone works great too. People are generally understanding.
Okay, choosing a cafe. Any guidelines there?
Sort of depends what you want. For reliable Wi-Fi, outlets, and consistent quality, franchise cafes are a safe bet.
Like Starbucks or IDEA?
Exactly, but if you're after unique design, cool photos, that special vibe, seek out the independent cafes, meaning aesthetic or emotional cafes.
Got it. And for buckling down to work?
Well, besides the regular cafes, there are also dedicated study cafes or co-working cafes designed specifically for quiet concentration, often with hourly rates.
And finding these places, especially the trendy hidden gems.
Social media is your friend. Use Korean hashtags on Instagram or blogs, things like hashtag Seoul Cafe if you're in Seoul, hashtag Brunch Cafe for brunch spots. That's how you find where the locals are going.
Great practical tips.
So maybe a final thought to leave people with as we wrap up. Thinking about the future of cities, of public spaces.
Yeah.
What if the Korean cafe, with its history, its adaptability, the deep personal meaning it holds for so many, what if it's more than just a cultural thing? What if it's kind of a living blueprint for how communities can connect and find space for themselves in our busy modern world?
A blueprint for connection. That really makes you think, doesn't it? What does your own third place, wherever you are, mean to you? Something to ponder. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.